When I discovered Jonathan was busy delivering cold medicine to his assistant while leaving me trapped in a broken elevator with my claustrophobia, I filed for divorce. He signed immediately, chuckling to his friends, "Just a silly tantrum. Her parents are gone. She won't actually leave me." Then he added, "There's that 30-day waiting period anyway. When she comes crawling back, I might take her in." The next morning, he posted a couple's photo with his assistant captioned, "Catching your cute blushes." I silently counted days while packing. Dialing my uncle, I said, "Could you book me a flight to New York?" Chapter 1. Wonderful, Ollie. "I've waited years for this call," the middle-aged man answered, his voice lifting with delight. The moment I hung up, Jonathan opened the door, bringing in a wave of strange perfume, sharp and cloyingly sweet. "Who called?" he asked without caring, eyes glued to his phone. As I opened my mouth to answer, his phone rang. A girlish voice chirped through, "Mr. Jiang, thanks for bringing me medicine last time. Without you, my cold might have gotten so bad. I don't know what I'd do." Jonathan quickly turned down the volume. I swallowed my words. Weren't we getting divorced anyway? I quietly kept packing my things and made my usual cup of warm milk. After sweet-talking someone on the phone, Jonathan sat flipping through his financial newspaper. His hand automatically reached out for the flower tea I always prepared, but it wasn't there. He finally glared at me impatiently. "So what if I didn't come when the elevator broke down? Zoe's cousin is a doctor who says your claustrophobia isn't serious. Stop overreacting. Anyway, I signed the divorce papers. Why keep making that bitter face all day?" That day, I worked late and got trapped in an elevator, shaking with fear. Suddenly the lights went out and my phone battery was dying. My claustrophobia kicked in as I desperately called Jonathan. He just snapped, "Handle it yourself. I'm busy." My phone died right after and I blacked out. Later I discovered he'd given his assistant Zoe days off work. Turns out he was too busy delivering her cold medicine that night. That's when I asked for a divorce. "It's fine. Once the divorce is finalized, you won't have to see my grumpy face anymore." I kept working, expecting him to be pleased. But to my surprise, Jonathan suddenly shouted, "Don't come crying back later." When he saw I was focused on my work and ignoring him, he slammed the door angrily. I didn't waste energy thinking about his mood swings. After finishing my tasks, I fixed myself some warm milk and took a relaxing bath before bed. Jonathan texted me, "I'm drunk. Come get me and bring yogurt." I didn't want to go, but he immediately texted again, "We haven't signed the divorce papers yet. Do your wife duty." Exhausted, I grabbed my things and left. When I reached the club entrance, Jonathan and Zoe's laughter spilled out from inside. It reminded me of that night when I first asked for divorce. He was drunk when his friend asked, "Jonathan, you'd really divorce Alicia?" He scoffed, "She's just being dramatic. With her parents gone, she can't actually leave me. There's that 30-day waiting period anyway. If she changes her mind, I'll forgive her, and she'll come crawling back." He thought that since I was an orphan, I would never leave him. Instead of figuring out how to treat me right, he believed this was why I couldn't live without him. Chapter 2. I pushed open the door. Jonathan looked startled when he saw me, his eyebrows drawn tight. "Why are you here? Are you following me?" he demanded. I waved my phone at him. "You texted me?" Zoe tugged his sleeve with a pout, whining, "Mr. Jiang, I just joked about asking Sister Alicia to bring yogurt. You won't be mad, right?" The tension in Jonathan's face melted away. Strangely, I felt nothing watching Zoe play her games and Jonathan letting her. No anger, no meltdown like before, just a calm nod to show I understood. For the first time ever, Jonathan tried explaining himself. "Alicia, Zoe was just helping me with client meetings." I cut him off by shoving the yogurt into his hands. Jonathan couldn't drive after drinking. He got Zoe settled and left with me. Our taxi waited across the street. As I stepped forward, Jonathan suddenly yanked my arm. A speeding car had nearly clipped me. Without him, I might have gotten hurt. "Watch where you're going," Jonathan snapped, gripping my hand tightly. It reminded me how he'd always held my hand while crossing streets before. But that memory felt distant now, almost unfamiliar. When we reached the other side, I quietly slipped my hand free. The next morning, I was getting ready for work when Jonathan offered, "I'll drive you." After yesterday's drama kept me up late, taking the subway would make me late. I accepted without hesitation. Opening the passenger door, I was hit by a sweet floral perfume. Pink seat covers and a Hello Kitty cushion greeted me. A sticker on the dashboard boldly claimed, "Reserved for little Sean" in bubbly letters. The sight felt ridiculous. Jonathan, famous for his serious professional image, now had childish decorations cluttering his car. The irony was almost laughable. A flicker of discomfort crossed Jonathan's face. "Zoe's just a kid. Don't take it personally," he said. "A kid who takes couple photos?" I swallowed the question, remembering how he'd posted matching portraits online the day after our divorce filing, capturing your shy moments under the picture. Whether this was revenge for my divorce request or something else, his heart clearly wasn't here anymore. I slid into the back seat. "I'll ride here." "Missed breakfast." He broke the tense silence by offering milk. I looked up and saw a snack box in the car packed with all kinds of cookies and fruit snacks. I remembered Jonathan was germophobic and never let anyone eat in his car. Once, when I suddenly got low blood sugar in his car, my lips turned pale, my vision blurred, and I was too weak to speak. I begged for just a sip of milk tea to feel better, but he refused. Now Zoe gets to eat whatever she wants in here. The difference between love and not loving is so clear. I shook my head and said no, then stared out the window at the traffic. Luckily, we reached the office soon, and I hurried back to my desk. Technically, since Jonathan and I were getting a divorce, I should have resigned. But with 2 ongoing projects, I felt responsible to finish them first. I was swamped all morning and afternoon, exhausted from lack of sleep. Just as I reached for my coffee mug, a delivery guy showed up with milk tea and cupcakes. The office buzzed with excitement. "The boss is treating us," someone cheered. Another coworker snorted, "Don't be silly." "Zoe's dieting, so he bought her snacks and tossed us leftovers. We're just along for the ride." Didn't the boss marry Alicia?" "Keep your voice down, Alicia's right here." "Alicia, we were just joking. Don't take it seriously." The sight of all those mango sago drinks and chocolate cakes told me everything. They'd ordered afternoon tea for the whole office, pretending to care about Zoe's unhealthy diet. I wanted to try these symbols of their love, but couldn't, allergic to mangoes and never liked chocolate anyway. When Jonathan was chasing after me, he made everything big and bold. He'd say I worked too hard to eat on time, making up work reports just to keep me around for meals. When I was sick but kept working, he'd hide pills and cupcakes and trick me into eating them, all to watch me scrunch up my face at the bitter taste. Our boring office buzzed with excitement over our romance. But now all that spark and care had moved on to someone else. I didn't have time to overthink things. My workload was overwhelming. I'd already worked late several nights in a row for this project, and today was no exception. It got so late that the sky outside darkened, and I didn't even notice Jonathan approaching. "Alicia, still here?" I wondered why he'd suddenly come to me. "Mr. Jiang, what do you need?" He seemed thrown off by my formality, but cut straight to the point. "Let's hand this project to Zoe." Even though I'd braced myself, the words still stung. Zoe's been dealing with so much gossip lately. If this project goes to her, people will stop questioning her skills. He knew how hard I'd fought for this project, staying up night after night, working nonstop. Yet here, he was handing it to Zoe like it meant nothing. All his words were about shielding Zoe from rumors, never acknowledging how unfair this was to me. I laughed bitterly. "Sure, give it to her. Have her come by tomorrow to take over. I'd given this company enough. Maybe it's time to quit anyway. Let Zoe handle the rest. I'd finally be free." Jonathan seemed surprised I agreed so fast. He pulled out a box with a necklace from his pocket. "You've been wanting something from this brand, right?" "My bad before. Girls love jewelry stuff. I'll make things right." It was exactly the brand I loved, the one I told him about. But he didn't give it to me right when I wanted it most. Now it just felt empty. And this whole thing? Slap someone then offer candy. Not my style. After I gave in, Jonathan's tone softened. He draped his coat over my shoulders. Don't fight me on this. What happened was my fault. Let's go and withdraw the divorce application this week. Didn't you always want to visit Dolly? I'll take you there. I stayed silent. Taking my quietness as agreement, Jonathan kept talking on his own. Later, while scrolling through social media on my way home, I saw Zoe's post. Her necklace had the same brand and packaging as mine, except hers looked far prettier and fancier. That's when I realized the one Jonathan gave me was just a freebie. How pathetic. He knew I loved that brand, but couldn't even make the effort to choose a real one for me. Chapter 4. Tomorrow would be the final day of our divorce cooling-off period. After that, Jonathan and I would have nothing to do with each other. I was watering my little potted flowers on the balcony when the ring on my middle finger slipped off and fell. Without thinking, I reached over the railing to grab it. What are you doing? Jonathan grabbed my arm and pulled me back. Do you have any idea how dangerous that was? His eyes were filled with worry and panic, as if he still cared. The ring fell, I explained. He had made it by hand for me years ago. I loved the style, so I kept wearing it. When it slipped off the balcony, I didn't hesitate to reach for it. Jonathan sighed. It's just a ring. I'll get you a new one. No need to risk yourself like that. Just a ring. My eyes fell on his bare middle finger. He'd clearly removed his own long ago. Tomorrow is our wedding anniversary. I'll pick you up, and we can spend it together. How long had it been since we properly celebrated a single anniversary? I thought to myself, let this be the perfect ending to our marriage. On our anniversary the next day, I sat in the reserved restaurant. I waited and waited, starving and getting more impatient every minute, but he never came. I opened my phone to message Jonathan. If he didn't really want to spend our anniversary together, he should have told me instead of making me wait here for nothing. After trying several times with no answer, I checked my phone again and saw our work group chat. An anonymous post popped up. Zoe is seducing her married boss, using her youth, and looks to climb the ladder. How disgraceful. Attached was evidence that I gave the project to Zoe. Though the post condemned Zoe, every word hinted at me. Soon after seeing the message, Jonathan kicked the door open and barged in. I thought you gave Zoe the project willingly, but you're actually this nasty, agreeing to it and then spreading lies about her behind her back. Alicia, how could you be so mean? Zoe hid behind Jonathan, crying like she'd been deeply hurt. I didn't even want the project. I don't care what people say about me. But Alicia, I always thought we were friends. Why would you do this? It wasn't me, I said calmly. I already agreed to give her the project. Why would I do something so low? Who else would want to hurt Zoe besides you? Alicia, you hypocrite. Zoe even picked this restaurant specially for us. You don't deserve this. His face flushed red with anger for Zoe as he smashed a plate, ceramic pieces flying across the floor. After over 10 years together, he still didn't trust who I was. I pulled the divorce papers from my pocket. The 30-day cooling-off period ends now. Let's sign. I slid my resignation letter beneath the documents. He sneered, snatched the pen, and scrawled his signature. Happy now? Then he stormed out with Zoe in his arms. I sat there watching them leave. There was no point in marking this last wedding anniversary now. I looked at the cold food on the table and slowly ate my pasta, one bite at a time. After finishing my meal, I grabbed the suitcase I'd prepared in the corner and booked a ride to the airport. During the ride, I texted Jonathan, "Keys are on the living room table. We're done. Never contact me again." I powered off my phone and boarded the New York-bound plane. Through the airplane window, the city got smaller below. Only then did I truly feel I was leaving. I imagined Jonathan's face when he'd find out, shock or relief at being rid of me. We used to be close partners, work buddies, perfectly in sync. We were so inseparable that everyone admired us as the perfect couple. He knew my parents died young. Once he hugged me saying, "I'll take good care of you. I'll be your family now." So how did that become her parents are dead? She can't divorce me? When did his pity turn into confidence that I couldn't leave? My head hurt from thinking. The internet says when a relationship makes you unhappy, end it. I shut my eyes as the plane carried me to another country. When the plane landed, I walked forward with my suitcase. Suddenly, I heard my uncle shouting with a sign. I turned and saw him pushing my elderly grandmother toward me in a wheelchair. My uncle looked almost the same as I remembered, and Grandma's eyes still held that warm kindness. "Ollie, let me see you properly," Grandma said, holding my hand with teary eyes. "My sweet Ollie, you've had such a hard time. Now you're home with Grandma. Nobody will hurt you here." She kept holding my hand. Though I'd never told them about Jonathan, maybe my tired face gave me away, or maybe grandmothers just know these things. I smiled through my own tears. "Should have come back years ago," my uncle said cheerfully. "After your parents." "Well, Grandma worried every day you stayed there alone." Seeing their love made my heart ache. I'd chosen Jonathan over them for too long. "I'm staying, I promised. Never leaving you again." Jonathan always thought I was alone in the world. I tried mentioning visiting family a few times, but he never really listened. He didn't care or ask. After turning on my phone, I saw tons of missed calls and voice messages. It kept buzzing nonstop. My uncle frowned. "Is that jerk still bothering you?" "Don't worry, I'll deal with it," I said. When I answered, Jonathan exploded with angry shouts. "Alicia, where are you? How dare you ignore me? You destroyed Zoe's life and think you can just run away?" Zoe's hiccuping cries came through. It's okay. People at work were just talking. I don't blame Alicia. It's my fault for being useless." Jonathan got even madder. "Hear that? Get back here now and apologize. Do it right, and I'll let it slide. Otherwise, you're fired." A cold laugh escaped me. The whole situation felt ridiculous. "Jonathan, we're divorced. We're nothing to each other now." He seemed to recall signing those divorce papers himself. "I know we're divorced," he snapped coldly. "This is your former boss speaking. After what you've done, shouldn't you come apologize?" I kept my voice steady. "If I remember right, you signed my resignation too? We're not boss and worker anymore. I don't owe you answers." Jonathan stumbled over his words. "When did you quit? I never approved this. You think you can mess everything up and just bail?" Chapter 6. Jonathan, just check whether I did it or not. And tell Zoe this, instead of wasting time with those sneaky little tricks, maybe work on improving your skills. I ended the call. Blocking his number and deleting it for good, I froze for a second before opening our chat window to erase all our messages. My phone lagged from being overloaded with storage as I watched our decade-long digital history, from first meeting to passionate love, vanish pixel by pixel. Emotions swirled inside me. Pocketing the phone, I forced an easygoing smile to comfort Grandma and Uncle who were watching me with worried eyes. When we got home, I found my uncle had already set up a neat, cozy room for me. "Ollie, do you like it? I don't know what girls like. Just grabbed whatever looked nice," he said, rubbing his neck sheepishly. But the room was pure me, creamy white walls, and even my favorite blue lamp. "It's perfect, Uncle." "Thanks." His face lit up. "Great. Get unpacked, and we'll eat soon." Their kindness wrapped around me like a warm blanket, filling my chest with quiet happiness. After a few days at home, I got restless and decided to return to work. When I was with Jonathan, I'd push myself to earn money and drive sales for our better life. Now I just wanted an easy job that would let me spend more time with Grandma and Uncle. I became a barista, making coffee daily and enjoying the simple rhythm of it. My old colleague Ava, who I used to get along with, contacted me and sent a video. It showed Jonathan trying to defend Zoe by investigating the IP address of the anonymous post attacking her, only to discover Zoe posted it herself. What's wrong with Zoe? She's exposing herself. But Mr. Jiang got really mad and demoted her from the assistant position that same day. Ava kept sharing gossip with me. I understood her motive. She wanted Jonathan and me to finalize our divorce. She was never as innocent as Jonathan claimed. After a bit of chatting, she went on, "You know that project you managed so well? Once Zoe took over, she can't handle a single thing. Either she's clueless or data errors keep popping up. The client company demands a new project lead, or they're pulling out. Now everyone sees Zoe never earned that project herself. I listened quietly, not really caring about anything Jonathan related anymore. Holding the phone between my shoulder and ear, I freed both hands to work on my latte designs. My coffee art still wasn't perfect yet, so I'd keep practicing at home after shifts. By the way, Jonathan's been asking around the office for your contact info. The whole place has been super tense lately. Every time someone brings him documents, he nitpicks everything and yells at us. We're stuck working super late every night. My hand froze mid-pour. You didn't tell him, right? Shawan promised. No way. Ollie, you've always had my back. I'd never rat you out. I finally relaxed. The next few days of work left me feeling more relaxed than ever. But I kept feeling like someone was following me. I told myself it was just my imagination. Yet somehow, Jonathan still found me. One afternoon while making coffee, my peaceful job where the rich aroma always calmed me, I looked up at a customer and froze. My warm smile disappeared instantly, replaced by icy coldness. Ollie. I didn't know how he tracked me down, but I definitely didn't want to see him. Months had passed. Now he had messy stubble and dark eye circles. The man I remembered was always clean-shaven, perfectly groomed and dressed. Ollie, he said, come home with me. Chapter 7. His eyes were red-rimmed as he rasped, Ollie, why did you block me? My mind flashed back to deleting our chat history and hitting block that day. Jonathan, we're divorced. I quit your company too. Why are you here? His throat moved like he was holding back feelings. Our divorce was my fault. I misunderstood you and signed the papers rashly. About the project, I investigated. I was wrong to accuse you. Can you give me another chance? I gave him a mocking look. Divorces take 30 days to finalize here, giving him 2 chances to back out. He didn't know his false accusation wasn't the real reason, just the final straw after 7 years together and 5 married. The truth was, his heart had wandered long ago. Do you think I wanted a divorce just because you gave my project to Zoe or thought I was two-faced? Jonathan's face twisted painfully. I went on. When you left me alone in the elevator, knowing I'm claustrophobic, just to take Zoe cold medicine, that's when I decided. He remembered my claustrophobia from when I got locked in the storage room years ago. Back then, he'd held me crying, swore to protect me, even took the door off its hinges. Yet he threw me aside for her. I'm sorry, Ollie, I thought you'd ask someone else for help. I didn't know you'd blacked out for that long. But we've spent so many years together. 7 years. You really think you can just walk away that easily? I figured you were just having a mood, that we'd cancel the divorce papers once you cooled off. I never meant for this to happen. Like always, so many times he'd wait for me to cool off on my own. But why should I swallow everything alone? I'm not going back with you. Just leave. I wiped my hands, too disgusted to speak another word. Jonathan seemed determined to take me back to China. For days, he either sat in the coffee shop watching me work or stood outside my house. Every morning, he delivered huge flower bouquets. Staring at the growing pile of mismatched blooms by my door, I realized he hadn't gifted me flowers in years. He'd even forgotten my favorites. He kept forcing himself into my life. One evening, I found him clutching a ridiculous stack of milk teacups after work, looking both desperate and foolish. His eager smile reminded me of a puppy hoping for scraps of attention. Ollie, I got you 12 autumn-themed milk teas. All your top choices. The drinks made me remember last year when I'd playfully asked for the first autumn trending online. His cruel reply still stung. Alicia, aren't you too old for childish trends? It's embarrassing. Yet I'd seen his social media posts showing Zoe receiving 10 fancy drinks plus autumn cakes and candied hawthorns. I dumped every cup in the trash. His clumsy attempts to win me back were suffocating. Stop this. I just want you to leave me alone. Jonathan's face went sheet white. But the peace didn't last. Zoe appeared too. Jonathan, come back with me, she pleaded. Panicking, Jonathan pushed her away. Ollie, there's nothing between me and Zoe now. Once I found out the truth, I transferred her to another department. I'll fire her if you want. Zoe stared in disbelief at his coldness, hurt flashing across her face. You're just clinging to Alicia because you can't let go, she said. But deep down, you love me. Why else would you abandon her that day just to bring me medicine?